Division. Real quick, Kim McCarson, say hi with the Music Entertainment Division, and Stephanie Bergara.
Thanks.
Okay, then Ann Charlotte will start. Just give us what your music connection is, if you have a music connection, I think you do. And we'll go around the whole circle here, and then we'll get going.
I'm Ann Charlotte Patterson. I'm the District 7 appointee to the Music Commission, and I'm also a member of Austin Samba, which is the largest samba organization in the United States. And I'm a supporting dancer with that.
Great.
Frank Rodriguez, I was former policy assistant to the mayor and focused on music and arts. And in 20 years, office, I've been working with the different groups. We started a nonprofit called EQ Austin, focused on equity, diversity, and inclusion. I'm also a musician. I have a Latin jazz concert.
No.
You've never seen it live?
Oh, no. I'm so bad. I'm going to go see.
Rebecca Reynolds, I'm an attorney and started Music Venue Alliance 4 years ago. And last year formalized Music Mix Austin as sort of a coalition of music-related interests to work together on policy issues.
My name is Captain Whittington. I'm the chair of the Tourism Commission. I also am the vice president for campus operations at the Long Center as of last October. Prior to that, I spent 12 years at South by Southwest. What have I not done in the music industry in Austin? I used to run a recording studio. I have been a stagehand, union and non-union, and
a musician.
And a musician, and a producer, and lots of other things. But my current role is focusing on policy and doing urban planning, where I focus on the interrelation of events and municipalities and public policy. So, just a few things for the
Gavin Garcia, and I've been in the music industry here for a while. I haven't performed since the last century. So from the late 70s and the punk rock era through the 80s and 90s. Metal groups as well. So I'm currently liaison for this group for the Music Commission, and I'm on the Music Commission for the third time, I think, and advisor to 7 different mayors in the history of Austin for the music industry. And this is terrific to be here. I'm proud to be part of this working group. And again, Music Commission meets tonight. It's February 3rd at City Hall, 6:30.
I am Nakia. I am a musician in Austin and been here for almost 18 years. And making music, putting out records, playing live. I'm also a former chair of the Music Commission, where I served for 2.5 years. A former member of the Board of Governors for the Recording Academy Texas chapter, where I served 2 terms. And I recently have launched a nonprofit for Austin musicians called Austin Texas Musicians. And I'm president of that organization and on the board for Music Mix Austin. And that's me.
I'm Chris Flores. I am the CEO and founder of Rural Management. We represent local artists and musicians. I'm a business consultant for that company. I'm director of operations for the largest privately held company in Texas. I'm also a musician who raised a big vocalist, a songwriter, and I'm a member of the MAP group for the Austin, Texas musicians.
I'm Taylor Wallace. I work at KATX. I'm a weeknight host, and I have a music and comedy residency at Independence the second Saturday of every month that gives bands guarantees and privileges to make sure that they get paid respectable amounts. That's it.
You're up, Robert.
Okay. Well, I'm Robert Kelly. I don't have any great titles. I'm just a straight up musician right here. I've been playing music in this community for since UT 1978. And I started before that as a drummer and a singer. And I have a 6-piece group, and my thing is I want to see what we can do to generate more money for musicians. That's where I'm at. That's basically it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shocking.
I knew it was gonna happen too. I know.
Like, wait.
Yeah. My name is Shaka. In Austin, moved here 10 years ago. And I'm also vice chair of the commission.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
It's good to see. So thanks everybody for making it out. We're going to go to our agenda. We have a sheet that states this. So the agenda number 1, Robert, I'm going to go over this for you today.
Okay.
And everyone else listening. So agenda item 1 is roles and responsibilities of the working group and the MED staff. Agenda item 2 is choosing chairs for this working group today. That's chair and vice chair. Number 3, the fiscal year 2020-2021 timeline and the working group proposed meeting schedule. Agenda item 4 is determining guidance questions for staff, i.e. statute requirements, third-party grant manager, EDI methods, etc. And then we'll get into the draft schedule later. So from here, I'll give Eric Shamley the floor to begin with roles and responsibilities.
All right, hi guys. Hi again, thanks for being here. So we won't, this is a working group meeting, so this is really, these meetings are intended for you guys to get together and really kind of get into the weeds and figure out what it is that you eventually want to recommend as ways that the live music fund can be utilized. And so, therefore, for today, we have we opened it up to the public. There's all different kinds of folks here. If you guys could just hold your questions till either at the end of the meeting, or please come to the Music Commission meeting tonight at 6:30 at City Hall and sign up to speak, where you can sign up to either ask a question or make a statement. And until further notice, we'll let you know if that can be opened up a little bit more going forward for working group meetings. So that's why today we're not going to get too into the weeds either about what is the Live Music Fund. We've done that in our first community forum, and you can also go to speakupaustin.org, Live Music Fund, to learn the latest about the fund and what its intent and everything that we've shared so far with the community. Because this meeting really is about these folks right here coming together and figuring things out for what's important to the community. Now, our role as city staff is to, help with meetings, help facilitate these meetings, make sure you have a place to meet, make sure it's accessible and that folks can get there and have plenty of time to know what the agenda is going to be. So we're happy to set calendar invites like I did for the first one, and just delivering that information and making sure there's a hold on the calendars for you. So a hold has been put on all of these dates. We try to get as close to every 2 weeks as we could, taking into account that there are city holidays, usually on a Monday, and of course South by Southwest coming upon us. So we try there's one that I think there's like a week in between, and so it's up to you guys to figure it out, see what you'd like to do. But we just wanted to get some holds down as quickly as we could, just so that we have something to offer you. But it's going to be up to you what you'd like to do. And then our other role is just to sit here and listen, and we will provide guidance as you need it. So if you have a question specifically about what if we did it this way, what would law say about that? We encourage you to come up with a list of questions, and then what we can do is for the next working group meeting have either the answers in place and make a presentation or talk to you guys, or have somebody else that's the appropriate staffer to go and do that. And so our role, and this is how we did this with the Creative Space Bond, we're a joint working group with music and arts, is that we just provided all the guidance that we possibly could, just so that recommendations don't veer off into a place that's just not legal or isn't possible for whatever reason. We want this to be as a productive time as possible for you guys, so that what you come up with is something that's been vetted and the community agrees on. And so are there any questions about that? The way the working group works with the Creative Space Bond is that whoever the chairs are typically will take the lead in finding out, reminding everyone about the meetings, what are the agenda items, what questions do we want to ask staff. We won't be doing that part for you. We will be there just to help facilitate just a physical, getting you guys in the room and getting you the right guests as part of your agenda. So as you're picking chairs, that's some work. There was a lot of due diligence that went into that, both in coordinating with fellow working group members, as well as maybe coordinating additional meetings that you guys have offline. And just this is y'all's workspace, and it's up to you to decide how you'd like to run it. And we're here to support. I think that's it. If any questions there from anyone? Anything else that I forgot, Kim or Stephanie? All right, well, thank you.
Thanks.
Generally speaking, Erica, just
Yeah.
two questions. Generally speaking, groups follow Robert's rules.
We do not have the same rules as with commission meetings. These are your meetings.
So we can adapt them if we want to.
I'm sorry?
We can choose to adapt them if we want
Robert's
to.
Rules of Order.
There are no rules of order. You guys can conduct the meeting in any way that you see fit, to set the agenda, have it go in any order that you want. It's up to you guys of how you'd like to create an agenda for each meeting. We do have questions in the clerk's office, like I said, about them being open. That's the only thing. We're not sure if there are additional restraints, but I can't imagine why. The only time we do run into any issues with rules of order and any type of making sure that everything's accessible to the public is if there's a quorum of the music commission that appears at the meeting. So that's why when we send you emails, it can't be a quorum of the commission as part of the working group. And even if the quorum shows up, that's all of a sudden an official meeting, and we would have had to post it without it. So just be very cognizant of that.
And there is an online portal, so to speak, that we can communicate with
Yes.
and collaborate with them.
Yes, so the Speak Up Austin page, I sent you guys a link to a private version of that. It has some chat features, different types of things. You guys, I can add or take away things that seem helpful that you would like to use. But I feel like that chat feature, if you have like certain threads that you just want to start ripping on together, it's a great way to do it instead of email. It's still, everything is still open, public records. Just keep that in mind, but everything we do with the city, with any kind of city tools are public accessible. So, but yeah, I'll get your email updated in there so that when you have to create a login for yourselves. I think Gavin's the only one who already has one, and then you guys, no one else can see it except for you have to log in.
So other members of the community or the commission don't have access to that?
Not
So
that
there's
one.
no
They have
chance
the
of there being a quorum just by de facto
No.
because there's
Right.
only one.
CTM sent you guys specific emails. So we sent a very specific list. That list that is published on the public, site is the only emails that we sent off to be invited to the site.
Great.
So we have one other member of our group joining us any minute now. So before we get into choosing chairs, I want to have music commissioners, Shaka and Charlotte, if you want to speak up about what you're looking for, because in the end, a recommendation is going to go to the commission, and then they will be doing the proposals going forward to the council, chiefly through us. So do y'all have anything you want to share before we get into in terms of your expectations of what we want to see? And in my case, I want to make sure everybody feels engaged in this. So I don't want to go, as Eric said, too formal in our discussion. Sometimes our music commission meetings become that. They're live, and we're at City Hall, and there's cameras, and people get a little, not intimidated, but harshly respectful. So in this case, I want everybody to be able to speak freely. The chair and vice chair will make sure people aren't speaking over each other, but there's 13 of us, there's a lot of voices, and we have the hard stops at 2 hours, 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock in these meetings. So I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable and engaged in this, because it'll go swiftly, these meetings, and then they're over. And I don't want anyone left frustrated that they didn't have or they felt a little shy about sharing things. So with that, we'll introduce our last person joining the party today before we come to voting. So Patricia, just introduce yourself and what your involvement in music is in town.
Sure. Sorry I'm late. My sister's in the hospital. So,
Thanks for being here.
I've been a professional musician since I was 15. It's a long time. and I am serving on the board of music commissioners, and worked in a lot of different sectors in the music business as a musician, and a consultant, mostly touring musician.
So I was asking the other commissioners or colleagues on if y'all wanted to speak about expectations or outcomes before we get started with this process.
Sure. So my gut feeling about it, and also feeling just really thinking about it for a while in terms of the importance of this, is really kind of in order to get past the complications and all the different perspectives. I've been thinking of it sort of with a consciousness about how to get where we need to go as a community, and figuring out how to manage to get to the goals that seem to be that everyone seems to have in common in terms of relief for the things that this hot tax is meant for. I've been sort of thinking more about the end goal that in my mind is common ground for everyone, and seeing that as actually it exists already as a solution. And what that looks like is having these funds, recognizing that the amount of money that this is to manage is not enough, but that it's a good start, and that if we want to be effective and to create a feeling of move toward a feeling of wholeness with what we need as an ecosystem in terms of musicians and the homeless problem. It's such a gargantuan thing that if we can begin to find a way to create what I always think of as a pie, and create percentages that represent all of the different stakeholders in ways that help us to feel like we're going in the right direction and that we're all represented and that we care about each other. Then having that as a roadmap, we can also create the feeling within government and the citizens of our city that we're on the right track, that we are on the right track to be effective, to manage the money in a responsible way, and that then we can look at that and say, okay, if the funding grows because there's a feeling that it's being managed properly with fairness, that it actually can become something that is really transformational and effective in all the different parts of our community, that this would give relief to. That's kind of understanding.
Patrice, Sean, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think in general, my thoughts are always about transparency within the city, but also within this group. Conflict of interest, people not trying to get into situations where they're trying to get into the organization. It's really about the community at large. I feel already a personal, like, a lot of things happening behind the scenes within this group that, I just want the real conversations to happen here, and try to leave as much of the politics outside of this room, and really work hard and engage everybody. If you care about it, and engage everybody in the conversation, not just amongst small local laws or groups. Really ask everyone questions that you want answers to, get everyone's opinions. And that's my concern in Austin in general, but also in this group, and a lot of groups I'm engaged in. So that's my thoughts.
And Sean?
I definitely would like to echo something about transparency. I think that's, and accessibility to the community. I want to make sure that everyone in the group is able to contribute to the extent that they would like to, and is welcome to do that. And that we're leveraging the experience and expertise of everyone here. I'm always so impressed in Austin of the people people are willing to donate their time to something like this. I've seen this at the district level, the neighborhood level. And so we're an amazing city. We're able to bring people together that are, there's a lot of things we can all do in this afternoon. As far as, within the working group meeting, what I've always found to be successful in this type of thing is that everybody comes to it with their passion and, what they would like. But I think it's also important to kind of set aside ego and come with an open mind, because somebody may come with a contribution or suggestion that is just really opposite of what anything we had an expectation for. But that may be key to lifting all those. I mean, we have a tremendous responsibility in this group, not just to distribute the money fairly, but to think about how we can have an incredible return on investment. So the two things that I would hope to get out of this is that we're somehow able to make this $3 million into more than $3 million in some way. And just that we're tremendously fair for everybody to be the as possible.
Aaron, who did introductions earlier? Do you want to introduce yourself and what you do in music?
Yeah, sure. I'm Aaron Fresh Knight. I am on air host for KTX 98.9. I host Fridays late night at 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. and also Saturdays 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. the breaks. I also freelance write and at one point was a blogger.
That's it.
Nice view.
Anyone else like to share thoughts before we move on to electing chairs?
I'd like to share my thoughts on my agreement with both Shotgun and Charlotte on the conversations that we're deciding together as a group. I think are best spoken as a group. And so any maybe sidebar conversations or conversations outside of decision making that come amongst all of us together are best to be presented with all of us together. I think we're all going for the same goal here. And all egos aside, we need to keep our eye on that mission. And we aren't going to agree on everything. That's apparent. But ensuring that we do have a very neutral approach, that we don't see a personal benefit for being for either our own personal selves as musicians or our companies that we work for, organizations that we run. The approach needs to be for the better good of our community, our music community. And so I wholeheartedly agree with what their expectations are.
So from that, we're going to agenda item number 2. So at this point, we're going to choose a chair first. And similar to Robert's Rules of Orders, we'll do this. We'll nominate, you can nominate yourself or someone else. It doesn't have to be seconded. You can second if you'd like, but that's not in order. And then if that person wishes to be up for that position of chair, then we'll leave their name there and then continue for a second nomination and so on and so forth. And then we can name them one at a time. So, yes.
Should we consider using Robert's Rules of Order this? Are we not allowed to, or is it just so that we keep the meeting?
Sure, I think
Could
so.
it potentially be unorganized if we don't?
Well, that's my fear, is that we have a lot of folks that have not served on groups and commissions and stuff before that might, it might be better if we have that structure in place.
For the group.
I mean, what do y'all think? I mean, it's the same type of thing that the commission meetings run on, et cetera. Does anybody have a problem with doing it?
I don't have a problem with it. I'm personally new to politics, and there's some things that I'd like to see change. Some of that being the transparency and speaking openly.
Right.
But some of that does give a good structure and level of organization.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to following that rule when it comes to deciding and appointing really important roles in the group.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those where.
Well, I think if we're going to adapt it, we have to kind of adapt all of it. And I mean, it's really just a basic structure so that if we do start to get off on a tangent of some sort, that the chair or if the vice chair is currently presiding, that they can bring the meeting back to order. That's the main thing. And I do think that we have the potential to get bogged down once. What are your thoughts?
I agree, and I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that, I agree, and I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is, I don't know, I think that my experience is it is what you make of it, Robert's Rules of Order. You don't have to take the entire
Absolutely.
book to heart. You know, a truncated version is plenty enough, I think, to keep things in track and keep the conversation going in a way. So just saying yes, with the caveat that we don't have to nail home every point.
Right. Well, we can always just pull it up if there's a question.
Right.
You know. I mean, anybody else have anything against using Robert's Rules of Order?
I mean, I'm fine with it. I think I would just, I agree with Callan that we don't, it doesn't become something that's restrictive. And I think what can be successful in groups like this is actually just having, having a carefully set agenda where we can say, okay, at this time, by 2:30, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And so careful time meeting.
It's mostly just to empower the chair or vice chair to be able to keep the meeting in order, I think, and to follow that agenda, right? Like that's my thing.
I think that's a good idea to do it. I think it would be especially important when the chair to those agendas.
Right.
Because one of the things that I have found being on different commission boards is you come to a meeting and something wasn't posted, something was proposed. So if we're going to do the Roberts, then we need to kind of make sure that carry it over to everything we're doing.
Yeah.
To avoid those kind of issues.
Yeah.
And I think the difference between this working group, from my understanding of Eric, is that we don't have to post an agenda the same way as we keep talking about. We can work collaboratively on an agenda as opposed to it being, let me email the staff and then let the staff email everybody and then try to we can communicate amongst ourselves. There's no forum, there's no template issues. So,
Right.
that's correct. So that makes
That's
it a
why
lot,
they set up that private chat thing. Yeah.
makes it a lot easier for us to work as a group towards building out agendas. That's a really big.
Okay.
Yes.
So should we?
So again, this is not a vote, we're going to vote on this, it's just
Yeah, we
somebody
can't
has an
vote.
issue with
Anybody have an issue with using Robert's Rules of Order? Okay. Great.
All right, then with that, we'll go back to taking nominations for chair.
I'd like to nominate Captain Whittington for chair.
Nomination for you, Liz. Whittington, okay. Other nominations for chair.
Do we take other nominations or do we?
Anybody else?
How's that work?
I second.
Okay, so we have a second. And you would accept it.
Yes. Okay.
So any other nominations for chair? Okay, so,
All right.
we don't have to take a vote unless we can. We should, okay, for our records.
Sure.
So all in favor of Calvin Whittington serving as chair, say aye. Raise your hand. Okay. All opposed? So that motion carried. And one opposed. Okay. So let's do a hand raise because I can't hear everybody's voices. So all in favor, Shaka as chair. I'm sorry.
As Calvin.
Calvin. Okay, can you raise your hand again,
Raise
please?
your hands if you're in favor.
Just for a second, so count.
Okay.
7. Okay, so all,
Sorry.
8. All opposed? 1. Okay, 7, 1. I abstain. There's some abstains. Okay, vice chair. So we'll take nominations for the vice chair
I'd like to
position.
nominate Chris Flores.
Okay, so we have a nomination for Chris
I'd like to
Flores.
second that.
Second for Chris Flores, and we can accept if, other nominations.
I would nominate myself.
Okay, and Charlotte has been nominated as well for vice chair. And seconded. Okay. Another vice chair, any other vice chair? No, so we will move to the vote first. So we'll just take raise your hands for Chris Flores to be vice chair. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And for Ann Charlotte as vice chair, raise your hand. 3, so it's 8 to 3. So that's the name. So Chris Flores, vice chair. Okay. So
Then we just turn the meeting over to.
we'll turn the meeting over to Catherine. At this point, we're on agenda item 3.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Gavin. A commendable job setting the tone for the meeting. First, thank you all for your confidence in me in leading this. And I guess some of you all have laid out what you would hope to see out of this, and I think from my standpoint, what I would gauge as success as we come out of this is basically a framework that we can look at, that the city of Austin can look at for a long time moving forward in managing this. And as Aunt Charlotte pointed out, that provides a good return on investment for the music community here, for the musicians, and the rest of the music industry, the commercial music industry as a whole. We're really make the most out of this funding as it continues to grow. So, again, thank you for your confidence in me. I guess the next step here is talking about timeline, meeting schedule, working group meeting schedule. Erica's done a great job of laying out the coming 4 months. Does anybody have issues with the dates that have been laid out and the time frame of trying to meet every other week?
I think the time is problematic, 2 o'clock, I don't know,
I agree.
2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Used to.
I know it all.
Used to that?
The dates aren't so much problematic as the time. And the further out dates are problematic for me personally now. So that far ahead, how flexible can we be on adjusting those dates for the majority, and can we consider a different time?
So all of it's open for now. This is where we begin the discussion. This is simply a proposal. And do we want to meet every 2 weeks, or every week, or every month? So everything's on the floor for the majority of us to make that decision. This started off as an every 2 week layout, exclusively on Mondays. Is that right? For these days? Just
Yeah, we
Mondays?
did that because of the commission meetings. If you guys wanted to have, they just worked out for February 3rd, like, well, that's kind of cool, and it kind of worked out every couple of weeks, but except for some holidays, that are February and May, I think.
I'd like to hear from those in the commission. This is a pretty cool day for you guys. If you're having to be here, meet with us, and then also attend the meetings later on, plus, what we have in our lives outside of this. I think if we can hear from y'all about that, that should be considered.
And also the meetings, they don't all have to be on Monday.
Right.
They can be Monday, Saturday, or they could, anything you guys, majority rule here.
And is it safe to assume that the reason that the majority of them are here is because it's easier to get this space in the city hall?
We tried as much as we could to get the boards and commission room because it's so accessible.
Right.
But it just depends on what's available.
Right.
But if you have a new time period, we can check and see.
Right. I mean, I would say that here for the commission is probably the best thing to do. And the 3 of you or 4 of you now are the ones that have to have a full day doing this.
Well, I'm more concerned about people being able to come, people working it. I couldn't get anybody to come, and people do want to come, so I think it's problematic to have it on the day.
Well, just remember that although it's a public meeting, there's no place during this time for a public input.
People want to come in here, they want to learn, you know what I mean?
We
Yeah.
had
I
a
don't.
huge last minute turnout during the cultural arts. It was a Saturday.
Yeah.
So,
Regardless of whether it's input or not, people want to know what's going on.
Right.
They don't necessarily want to sit and watch the replay. It's not that interesting. It's, they want to come to a meeting.
I agree with you with that.
I need to be considered. I just have to be considered. It's like nobody can come at 2 o'clock. And the day is definitely long for me and the rest of us that are on the music commission for sure.
So is it important to have it on the same day? That's with that part we can decide right now, then the times. And so what would be the first date that we can all agree on between Sunday to Saturday? Anybody have thoughts on that? Is Monday good or bad in general? Is there another day?
I don't have a problem Monday. I don't have a problem Monday at 2. I think if it's really a full day of commissioners, that we should consider not having it on another commission night.
so we want the public's input. What works?
We don't. I mean, they can't give us input during this process.
Well, can
No, but they
I clarify that with what Erica was just saying earlier? I felt like you were saying for this meeting, they're not having another meeting.
Yeah,
Right.
just because we just learned right before the meeting that we're asking the clerk's office, because typically working group meetings are closed to the public. And so now that there's a public component, they're checking to see if there's anything that says the public can or cannot be, you know.
Okay.
So
we
we
can
can
have
do this
that.
for our group, then we can go based on what's the most convenient for this.
I would say that we have a lot of working musicians at the table, so evening meetings might actually be problematic as well. Personally, while not a working musician, I have 2 small kids, so, and, you know, I'm sure others have a family as well, so evenings also problematic for me.
Evenings would be very hard for me. I'm working.
Saturdays or
Saturdays work for me, Saturday during the day. I mean, I feel like it's probably best for a lot of musicians
It
to.
doesn't work for me.
No.
I work on Friday, Saturday. I work Thursday through Sunday.
Yeah, it might be harder for musicians too, because a lot of us are out of town.
So maybe we need to prioritize.
Aaron has a shift on Saturdays.
That's it, that's it.
We have a lot of musicians at the table. I would prefer, you know, if evenings are problematic, if weekends are problematic, because that is when the music happens.
I am flexible with enough advance notice. My concern is more for the length of day for our commission members, really.
Could we look at, say, Tuesday from, we're doing 2 to 4 right now, maybe 4 to 6 p.m.? Would that be more amenable?
My only comment there is that if we leave this building at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday, we're already stuck in traffic for 2 hours.
It's the same as the lady here at work.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think that we're already all here right now.
2 to 4.
And if the problem is the 2 o'clock for getting other people here, and the length of time for the commissioners, then we should, instead of changing the time, because we're all agreeing to be here, instead of changing the time and date that we meet, maybe we look at not meeting on March the,
23rd.
I'm sorry, on April the 6th, or May the 4th, which is also commission meeting nights. And let's move it from, skip those 2 Mondays and push us into, a little bit further into June. But we might as well just keep it at 2, since the majority of us can be here, you know, at 2 on a Monday, and then just not do a full night of.
I mean,
I thought about it.
and I super appreciate your concern. I mean, it's fine with me to consolidate, it's sort of helpful to me to consolidate it in a day. I'm just wondering if we actually should maybe maybe do a Saturday in there or 2, so that if we do determine that, you know, the public can, will we have public attending today? Like, I just want to be able to be sensitive to that.
Have you, just as a, have y'all gotten input from the community that there are certain people that have said we need it on a Saturday or something that specifically said they want to come and they can't come?
No, I'm just saying, suggesting that as an alternate. We usually have meetings Monday afternoons, people that can't come to that, maybe a Saturday meeting is an option more accessible. To get it, they don't schedule an orientation.
I didn't realize what open to the public, I thought it was, we're figuring it out, but everybody that I talked to was like, I can't come over there, people are working.
Now, there is speakupboston.org, which is, you know, the public input,
Right.
which is open for public input, questions, comments, direction from the public as they want to be engaged via that portal.
That's a great, actually, that's a great question for y'all. Is there, right now, there's just a survey and form on the public page. Is there a way to put a place for them to just send us questions? to be
Yeah, we
considered?
can add another survey for each meeting that says working group meeting 2 survey, what would you like to ask?
I think that'd be fantastic.
And so we would just have to promote that out through whatever you guys decide. So,
Frank,
I think we understand the schedule, and I think back to several other points of view is that as we flesh this thing out going forward, and we have some milestone information that we can show the public, we should then set a Saturday meeting to briefly present that, and that people can weigh in on that, you know,
I think that's a great idea.
And that can be every, once every month and a half, particularly right now, as we're kind of putting together ideas, maybe some people will hear that, but it's probably not as important as if we really get something tangible and concrete and move forward.
Yeah, we can also, as staff, you may decide, we're ready for a big sweeping public engagement meeting after a couple months. And then, because that's part of our responsibilities too, would be to help bring in as many people as possible to get a report, or whatever you guys decide.
Right.
So you may decide that you focus quarterly on a big public meeting, something like that, just so you know that's an option available to you.
All right.
The end goal of this, frankly,
But, so the other question I had is, what does this all lead to in terms of the end result? I mean, what is the timeline in your mind in terms of what we have to, when we have to be finished? And,
Oh, that's up to you guys.
well, I mean, but so I met with a councilman the other day, and we're discussing this committee, and they told me, well, you know that nothing can move forward until they approve the convention center plan. And I asked, well, what does that mean? They said, well, we have a financing program, we have these things in place. And that's how I understood it originally, but then I heard differently from other folks. So I kind of reconfirmed. I said, so that means that it doesn't have to be operational, but it just has to be a plan that's been approved.
That is not my understanding. That's not the direction we've been given.
What is your direction?
That the money is accruing now. So it's up to you guys, the timeline and how quickly you want it to.
Well, I think we need to reconcile that because the person told me was there.
That's a good, I don't know if it's a legal issue that is complicated that
It
I
might be a
did not.
practical thing where we're not going to issue any checks until
That's a
they
good question.
know that
We'll
they
find
have
out.
money for the convention.
Well, I recommend we have at our next meeting in the city here, legal, and give us
Well,
specific.
it probably be finance. More than
Okay.
it.
well, as that would be kind of diving into section agenda item 4 here, on one question.
Let's
one
get back
ask
on the
the city.
schedule for
I would say, for the sake of dates and times, I like having it every other week. I think that if we do want to have public input, if Saturdays are problematic, I believe that it would be prudent for us to be taking back reports to commission. And at that time, you could have a presentation of what we're working
that's a
on,
good
where we're at.
idea,
And that can also be
yeah.
a public input part, as well as getting the feedback from other commissioners.
Great idea.
And because ultimately my understanding of this working group is that we take back a proposal and recommendation to commission, and commission takes that to council.
Correct.
This group isn't taking it directly to council. So ultimately, we do need to keep commission, we don't have 4 of you here, but we do need to keep commission in the loop on this.
So again, that timeline for you, the commission, every 2 weeks, 2 to 4 on Mondays, and then we have a Saturday engagement as well.
Potentially, if we need it. I mean, there's also the question of if we're doing a work back schedule, thinking of August as a timeline, because that's when council is going to be building the budget, which will be approved in October. And so if we want to have this in the next budget cycle, it needs to be in council in August.
Yeah.
So
Before,
it needs to be in their hands through commission July, so the council has it in August, or at least the first week of August.
I have a question about that as far as timing. Erica, is it true that if we were able to make some decisions, that we could actually spend the money that's accrued within this fiscal year?
Yes.
So, yes, that's true. We need to make a decision ongoing for August to begin the budget discussions for October. But if we were able to come to some sort of preliminary agreement before then, there's money ready to be spent right now.
Yeah, if you have like some low hanging fruit that you know is something that you all agree on, we can start a pilot or a test year.
So,
and I'm okay, I'll be, sorry, on Mondays as well, into commission dates and my.
Is there anybody that is not okay with the current schedule as it's proposed?
There's 2 days I'll miss because I have a standing member, third member of the.
There's one date that I'll miss, because I'll be in Los Angeles for a songwriter event, but everything else I'm here for.
miss one or two, so
On this one, I'm just looking at some.
there's 13 on this, so I think everything's covered pretty good.
And it's possible with CTM, we could get you guys Skyped in through our system here, if that's something that we're able to do.
Okay, cool.
So, but we need a heads up, like a pretty
Right.
good heads up of when you know that would be. That's why it's good to kind of figure out your schedules now.
Okay.
While you can't conference in for a commission meeting, I don't see any reason why we can't conference in for this working group.
That's good.
Okay, do we want to say that tentatively somewhere within this timeframe, we will set a longer breakout on maybe a Saturday to kind of hone in into the
Yeah, or if you propose that even taking it to the music commission as a special presentation of the music commission, I think is.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking as public, but if we do need more time,
Yeah.
if end of June is our time frame that we're aiming for, and we do need more time to work on something, we're getting close, but we need to spend 4 hours deep diving,
Yeah.
keeping it open for potentially sometime in May or June
Yeah.
to set up a longer meeting. Is anybody opposed to that as just a general operational understanding that we might have to call that?
So this is the schedule, we hold that idea if we were ready for it.
Yes. With good notice. All right.
I just want to take a second also to just acknowledge all the people that are here that did show up. I just think it's really cool that people from venues, there's musicians. I think that's super cool. And I'm sorry that's not public input part, but
Tonight.
not tonight. But tonight at the Music Commission it is.
It's tonight.
Yeah.
All right, so with that said, and hearing no other objections, this is the dates and times will be 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. On the dates listed here.
We we're talking about changing the music commission date.
Oh, did you want to do that?
Yeah, I thought that was on the
No, I thought it
except
said.
for those dates. Yeah, I would prefer to push on. That's my personal.
So that's 4/6, 5/4, and 6/1, right?
4, 6, 5, 4, and 6, 1. So, what?
If the rest of the group is fine with it. I know, it's just me personally.
I think as Charlotte said, she didn't mind preferred it to be, but I have no qualms of trying to jump forward a week or back a week on those 3 days. It's going to put them pretty close together, I think, but it keeps momentum up. And based on this timeline, we've got 8, possibly 9 dates between now and the end of June, including this date. So.
Could you guys check for alternate Mondays for 4, 6, 5, 4, and 6, 1?
Yeah, those are the ones I think we had some holidays. Staff won't be, if it's a city holiday, staff's not here to support it,
Right.
and the building won't be open.
Gotcha.
Would we be
So-
amenable to looking at Tuesdays? Tuesday 4/7, Tuesday 5/5, Tuesday 6/2.
Tuesdays
We can look into it, just so you know, if you ever need some staff updates from the executive team of BDD, those are our executive team meetings on Tuesdays, just FYI.
Wednesday 4/8.
So Wednesdays are better.
Yeah,
Wednesdays?
if I'm the only one, these other commissioners, fine, that's all right.
For sure.
I mean, it's personally, I don't like it. I understand, like, it's to be good.
Okay.
Patrice, do you have an opinion one way or the other?
I want everybody to be happy.
Hey, that's fine.
Honestly, like,
Bold
clumping them
ambitions.
together, clumping them together is easier because I can commit to being in town and just sucking it up.
That's great. You know what's good?
I know it sucks.
Let's keep
It really
these
does.
dates, these times, 2 to 4 p.m.
Thank y'all very much. For real.
If at all possible, on these dates, if we could find the location closer to City Hall so the
Yeah.
commissioners don't have to get all the way across to City Hall on those days.
Yeah, we can look, we tried to get the boards and commission room, but it was taken, so.
I also look at the calendar of the Long
That would
Center
be
and see
great.
if we can use the education.
Okay.
I love you right now.
That would be awesome.
We have
If you have it open to the
parking
public, if
and
there's
it's-
parking, that's the only thing, just to keep in
It's
mind.
accessible.
It's successful, yeah.
There's
Just nothing, whatever I'm trying to say.
reasonable parking. and then they don't have to go all the way across town to get to City Hall license.
Would that be more helpful for y'all guys if it was at Long Center or somewhere closer to the city hall so that when we're done, we just go there instead of here?
I still
A little bit.
It's still, I can't go to Oak Hill and I have to just be.
It's not, whatever.
Okay, all right.
I will work to see if we can find another location close by. If there's any places you can check as well.
Yeah, we've already started looking into it, but if they're
Central
totally, we have
Library.
group meetings happen wherever you guys decide.
So, Central Library, also maybe, I
We
don't
can
know,
look into the library.
that'd be cool.
Also real quick, May 4th is a holiday, Labor Day. You gonna do that?
5-4?
Yeah.
No, we're not gonna do a holiday because the office will be closed here.
May 4th is a holiday?
Oh, yeah, sorry, UK. I'm so sorry. Sorry. This is Labor Day.
It was like, wait, I think you mean May 5th, Cinco de Mayo.
Sorry.
Okay, all right. That said, we're gonna keep 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. on these dates, and we're gonna look at potentially finding a location of the board commission meeting dates. And good job, Ralph, you figured it out. We are scheduled. Okay, this leads us to item 4 on the agenda, which is the broad and substantive portion of the meeting. What information do we need to get from staff so that we can be better informed starting our next meeting? Yes, item 4 is determine guidance questions for staff, i.e. statute requirements, third-party grant manager, EDI methods, legal opinions, funding limitations, whatever points of clarification we might need in order to start this conversation. Right?
So I raised a point earlier about the use of monies and so forth, clarification of that. The finance and review. Second thing is use of hot proceeds, what's allowable, permissible, with regard to the use of monies for music purposes.
Oh, before we go any further, I have a question. Will you have somebody that's taking notes on all this stuff to keep, should we, none of you are doing that, right? Is that-
That's it. That's you guys.
So we should specify somebody, yeah, parliamentary or something to take.
We should probably, it's not on the agenda, but we should have a secretary.
Yeah, that's what I figured too, because I suck at recall
Or
without
it
notes.
could be vice chair /
How good you were taking notes?
Well, I take notes that I can read. If I'm being completely transparent,
Is it
I'm not
possible for us
convinced.
to have somebody outside of the group to do that?
Unless somebody wants to volunteer right now. Oh, this position.
Because I do happen to know somebody that's really good at taking notes.
What could that be?
Gonna be here all the time. So,
You know,
I'm happy to do that.
good.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
I won't be here I'll be on the Rio on the 24th, so how?
You don't want to Skype in?
Yeah, so we just need somebody to basically, like, when we're making these recommendations and are these determining what these guidance questions are, so we have a list so that we can send out to everybody and go on. So Frank, could you repeat your 2 questions? I missed them.
one is to hear from city staff, finance, and or legal with regard to the release of the hot news.
That's a top priority.
And
Yeah.
then number 2 is appropriate use of the hot proceeds as far as programs.
Which would be legal, I guess.
They're kind of doing it as well.
I mean, can we get somebody like Charles Leverson who's more familiar with the state statute and maybe some legal?
I think that would be prudent, however,
Maybe not him, but somebody who can speak to the state statute.
I love Scott. I just his reading of it can be pretty conscriptive sometimes.
Well, I
I wouldn't want
understand.
us to get started.
And he's
with
reading it from, his point of view as well. So I just think that maybe city legal is also looking at it from the city's point of view. And there might be a rubber meeting, that somebody who's more familiar with the state statute can provide.
Perhaps in this league.
Sure.
So
Can y'all expand on what this topic?
Sure. The limitations of hotel occupancy tax is governed by Texas state law, chapter 350. And Scott Jocelyn being the chair of the Texas
Hotel
Lodging Association. And an attorney and an excellent resource in legal topics surrounding hotel occupancy tax. As is the municipal league.
So that would give us the state opinion and the city opinion to see if everything's coexist.
So the state allows the creation of the fund, and then the city has its own code on each municipality gets to decide how they want to administer the fund within the overall umbrella of the state allowances. So they can narrow it, they can add things to it, but there's a very pretty strict checklist of what the state creates this fund for and then allows the cities to administer. So we're going to need to hear from somebody who understands the state statute very well and then somebody who understands what our city has allowed for under that state statute.
And to be clear, Scott was one of the people who helped to create the live music fund.
Well, he certainly
pushed it forward, right?
I would say he certainly had a role in that. I saw him speak on the issue at City Hall several years ago when the council first decided to reopen how the city of Austin spends their hotel tax money. And I saw him kind of give a quick and dirty to council on what Chapter 351 means. So he knows it very well because he speaks on the subject a lot. However, to Caitlin's point, he speaks on the subject with his
agenda
in mind,
Right, yeah.
and that's okay. And
Right.
he's also,
Who is he again?
Scott Joslove is the chair of the Hotel Lodging Association.
No, he's the president.
President of the Hotel Lodging Association. So it's a lobbying organization. But mind you, the money that we're collecting is from hotels.
Right.
So they do have,
They're stakeholders.
so they are a stakeholder in deciding whether or not they're willing to increase their own taxes to provide for whatever it is that we're going to suggest.
Gotcha.
And Scott did mention that he'd be happy to come and meet with you guys and do a workshop, any questions you might have, so.
Great.
So can you, and you probably familiarize me with this, the procedure in the state, so we have a recommendation to move this to council, so who at the state level is? As long as it's compliant with the state statute, there's not going to be any engagement process with the state. And so who determines?
Well, ultimately, if there is perceived conflict with the state law, the Attorney General would make a ruling on whether it does conflict with the letter of the state law.
Somebody would have to take it to the Texas AG and say, we believe that this recommendation is not within the bounds of Chapter 351, and then the state attorney general's office would look at it and issue an opinion on whether or not what we recommended is within Chapter 351. So that might be like a third party also. It could be anybody. It could be, it's a public process, so it could be anybody here, it could be city, although I highly doubt anybody in the city of Austin is going to ask for it.
So the whole subject is, can be real fuzzy. When I was up in the river with the downtown Pilsen a couple of years ago, there were some things we wanted to do with the hot funds that would benefit, let's talk about the MAC, for the MAC to be participating in these waterfall monies that this program was going to spin off some extra monies, right? And so the initial reading by the city attorney was like, hey, do that. And then we asked some more, we asked different folks, and they said, well, you might be able to do that if the MAC is a program of the convention center. The convention center said, well, we will we will gladly, book space there for some events. So Sony now and I could qualify for the funds because they were a part of the convention center. In the end, I said, no, we don't want to be part of the convention center. And they went and got their bond and it's okay. But that's kind of what you're talking about. It's kind of problem solving these issues because the law is pretty strict. And a while back, the cultural arts, there was a challenge in the cultural arts that the monies were not being spent appropriately under the state statute. In other words, it wasn't focused on tourism.
Right.
The workaround that was that, in a very indirect way, they were able to prove that those monies, maybe not directly, but from a secondary standpoint, were benefiting tourism. And so they kind of legitimized their role in getting those monies. So it's kind of
The state statute says it has to directly impact tourism and convention centers.
it does say that, and I think they justified it on that basis, but they use a different way to do that. And I won't get all the details of that, but all I'm saying is that there's workarounds and creative ways to kind of do that. And I think when we start talking about funds for music, we're going to have to go through that process. And so the more people we talk to, all the way from the strict kind of folks like the legal departments and the other side of like Joshua, and people in between is going to help us benefit. So we have to hear all kinds of reports of you.
Yeah, I just want to second that. So I think hearing from city legal is important, but I think in my experience, their reading of anything is extraordinarily safe. We might be able to be more creative than city legal might acknowledge from the get-go, as long as we make sure we're staying within the law. I think it's going to be important to hear from more than city legal.
Absolutely, I definitely agree with that. So what I will do between now and the 24th, I can reach out to Scott Jocelyn as well as TML and see if we can get maybe two different opinions or two different people to come and talk about that. Once Texas Municipal League, they represent municipalities throughout Texas and they help to provide various rulings. They're basically the lobbyists for cities at the state level. If you can get a hold of Ms. Fireside and see if she can join us in the next meeting, and then once we have this portal, I will upload not only the state statute chapter 351, but there's also a very good reading of what cities need to know about administering hotel occupancy taxes.
Right. That statute is currently in both your private site and in the public site. The statute is in the documents library to the right. In fact, the city ordinance, the statute. And so, yeah, if there's anything else you would like to upload, both for the working group or for even the public, just send it to us and we can get it on the site.
Great. That just to you directly?
Yeah, that's fine. Stephanie or me can upload.
Does it make sense, and I'm out of my depth a little bit on action at the state level, but does it make sense to ask a staffer from the nation's office for some interpretation?
Typically, they only do my experience, and I could be way off of this, but my experience is that they are only going to make a ruling based on a current usage of whether it's within the terms.
They can't like give you preemptive legal advice. So.
And honestly, if the hotels are behind it and there's nobody saying crying foul, if we come up with a good plan and put it forward, and it's generally speaking within state law, the AG wouldn't get involved. They would tell somebody cries foul. That's not
There's an approach how long you respond to the AG's office would be.
in short, yes. Yeah, I mean, it's stakeholders in general, right?
In addition to it being legal.
In addition to it actually being legal, yes. Yes, it needs to be within the concept. Okay, so yes. Overview from city legal, question from finance, as well as city legal regarding the release of funds and the availability of the funds. Overview of hotel occupancy taxes and legal legal frameworks officially can be used. Any other points of information that we want to request from the city staff?
Like David Colligan to come to the meeting. He's the one that brought up at the council the notion that this money is available now, or at least near the end of this year. So that was public, which is not what Frank's saying.
I don't think he needs to come, I think we just need to clarify it.
Okay, from the other folks. So you don't think David is necessary?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary for them to be down here. I think just, having the clarification for that would be,
I would like an overview on the current state of cultural arts funding, cultural arts grants, and I know that they've been going through a new revised process for the matrix, and I'd like to understand where they're at with that as kind of some background for current use.
how would we go about getting that?
We could get a staffer to come make a presentation to you guys at the next meeting of what's going on. They're currently going through public meetings. They just had one this past Saturday, I believe, or Saturday before last, right? To go over restructuring guidelines. So this is kind of like perfect timing for all of this to be happening kind of at the
I
same
think that would
time.
be very informative, especially as we're deciding how the money's going to be handled,
Could we or should we also ask for a synopsis and overview of the historic preservation grant funding, which is also coming under Chapter 351?
The only thing I would say there is that most of the historic grant projects are also city-owned. I'm not sure that it totally applies to what we're doing, and I don't want to waste a bunch of time getting into the weeds on comparing to.
That's fair.
I went to the workshops, when we put out the IOPs, and a lot of the staff do, they have rules. And so I think it would be helpful to listen to, because they decided that a certain percent is going to go to city projects. And then after that, what's left, they got closer to decided how they're going to parcel that out. And so I think it's open for discussion.
No, it's open. It's not. There's no requirements around that.
It's not many rules.
Would it be helpful just to have the documentation surrounding that uploaded onto the site for us to review and to just have a conversation about that internally first? And if we have more questions, we can ask for staff input.
Do you want me to upload the guidelines, current guidelines, then for the other grant programs to the private site?
That would be great. The historic preservation grants, and then let's look at getting cultural arts.
It would just be current guidelines, and then as you know, cultural arts is now in a new interim year with their current grantees to get to the next cycle.
New matrix and program.
Yeah, so we would give you what's current.
Yeah, that's fair. Anybody else? Additional information?
And that's over several meetings,
I mean, we have 2 hours in our next meeting. I think that if we can start with as much information as we can, because I mean, otherwise we're going to be, I'm going to be honest, I was on the visitor impact task force, the tourism commission, a lot of this is rehash for me. So if everybody says, hey, we already know what this all is, we don't need to hear it again, great. But I think that as a working group, having that baseline where we all have the same information in front of us is a helpful starting point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we should all also, once the documents are uploaded, to just be really familiar with them as well and make sure they're reviewed so that when we are getting together, we're already all up to speed on what we're talking about and kind of streamline the process.
Would it be helpful to, so TXP, was it TXP that did the economic impact analysis of the music industry?
The most recent one of the 2-pager.
Yeah, the 2-pager and the original one, the creative, I believe it was TXP that did it.
Do you want to bring the economic impact study in, or do you want a new one?
No, I don't want a new one, but it would be interesting to be able to ask of those economists that worked on that what metrics they were looking at to gauge the vitality of the music industry.
Yeah, just commentary on that. I got a lot of feedback from the community that that report wasn't necessarily, I don't want to say accurate or inaccurate, but that it didn't give a full picture. That sometimes the health of certain sectors, to your point, that the variables that they looked at weren't actually giving a full picture of health of certain sectors.
That's understandable.
Can we, if what we're looking for is sort of a current day health of this music economy, is there somebody who wants to do that, or do we feel like we have enough information?
I would be more interested in getting a set of variables and metrics by which we can try to gauge the viability of programs and framework that we're putting forth, right? If it gives us some kind of basis on which to judge the vitality of what we're talking about, that would be my intention.
Because we need to have some sort of measure of success
Right.
of our program.
Right. What are our KPIs on this, and how do we measure what the ROI is on this investment?
So on the musician side, of course, you have data, wages, employment, and so forth. On the industry side is where the issue is, because when the mayor's office again, when we look at kind of the ecosystem and look at what don't we have in Austin to really make it a true music city, right? Not allowing to capital the world, but a music city that has infrastructure. There's a process that we call coefficient analysis. So you look at other cities, peer cities, and you compare the clusters of economic activity and recording and licensing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you compare them with Austin. And you adjust the comparisons to make them apples to apples. And what we found was Austin was lacking in all those clusters. Okay, so that's the conclusion is that we need to do more in these areas. That was an informal study that we did with Congress. So somebody needs to do a formal study and do that cluster analysis to compare us with other cities. And maybe somebody, I don't know this, the folks that did the impact study of the music industry, somebody needs to come and kind of start helping us form a concept of how we create those metrics.
And what's our participation then on what those measurables are, what the variables are, and can they be more control variables, and how are the metrics correctly measured and then communicated in those terms so that the community understands why we're making these decisions and how we're reading them. So we need to be able to translate that to our community. To me, that's the most important thing, is that we can talk metrics, variables, KPIs. I mean, what does that matter to folks who don't know what that means? Yeah. And so how do we translate that? Bring it back to the community at a level that it really does matter and they have an impact. And what impact are we having on those measures and determining that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And also what comes up for me is just like, how are we defining value? Like, so we're talking about ROIs and all these different getting perspectives from economists and all this stuff. And it's like, do they define value the way that some of us do?
Right.
You know, and how are we quantifying that in this group? Do we have a common understanding of the differences? How do we come together on what value is?
I think the data analytics part is really important on the decision making that we're here to do. But we got to remember what we're doing it for and who we're doing it for, and making sure that they're educated, they're heard, and that we are able to translate that the work that we're doing and bringing in is to that purpose and to that mission. Because these are fantastic ideas. And in being able to operate and run a business, I can see the value in it. We just need to be able to speak it back. I got to reiterate, we got to be able to speak it back to the community so that they participate, and the participation in these, studies and in these results are including our musicians that really want to be part of it.
Perhaps it's a multi-stage conversation, right? Stage one, finding what variables have been used to date. Stage two, defining what that actually means in terms of success by our measure of success. And stage 3 is, as you put, translating that and framing it in such a way that is accessible.
And then maybe stage 4 is that we're going to, expose ourselves to the public to have a response. Where at that stage 3, we could actually say that this is the point where we would want to engage the public more determinative than being able to get in, so that we can understand if we're not only translating it to them, but that we're addressing the needs as a city.
Could be imperative.
Yes.
I just want to interject real quick. I just want to make sure that we're all really clear on what we're here to do. And as much as I'm all for the community input and all that, I think that a really great way to do that is to have staff initiate this idea where we can start getting public input through the portal, so that we can start communicating to people. We need to hear from you in this way as soon as possible, so that we're getting some of that. But also, I don't want us to get bogged down in stuff that doesn't pertain to what our actual mission is, what we've been tasked with here, which is to kind of create a framework that we can recommend to the commission that then y'all take to City Hall, right? Because, at the end of the day, as much as I hate this, like you'd think that I really love this shit, but I don't. This is the part of the stuff that we're actually here to do is really boring. It's this kind of minutia stuff, and that's why it's important for us to speak it, to have the ability to speak outside of here, but we also have to make sure that at the end of the day, it's actually the Music Commission's job to communicate it. We're just here to recommend to the Music Commission. It's not actually our job, what we're tasked with, to recommend it to the public. I mean, I run a nonprofit that's about having the musicians' voices heard, but at the same time, we have to come up with that's why, we have musicians on this thing, so we can come up with it, recommend it, and let them have a voice along the way. Otherwise, we're going to get stuck. We could get stuck going off the rails.
Can I say something just based on our experience with the Amplified Sound engagement last year and with the Creative Space Fund? What is helpful and why inform we is like find your bucket. Are you a musician? Are you a venue? Or are you a music business? Is that we continue with that type of survey that we did. The survey currently open, which is how would you like to see these funds spent? It's still open. We're going to close it on Friday. We will wrap that report up and upload it to both public and private sites just so everyone can read it. But you guys can create some recommendations and we can survey on it. That could also be part of a greater public meeting where the city gets more involved.
And we can do that in the
part.
language that they would understand.
Yeah, but you have a lot of work to do to get to a point.
I think that's my main thing.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we're staying focused while bringing up those people along with us that
We
can.
could easily get discombobulated. My main concern is whatever we do, that's our role here, is to come up with a recommendation.
Right.
Otherwise, it's a huge mess. We're here to say organize and come up with a recommendation, but I want to be clear that the recommendation that we bring out to our musician and our music community is one that they understand.
Absolutely.
It comes down to like voting. People just vote to be, it's like a herd mentality. Oh, they're voting for this because everybody else is voting for it. How do you vote for something that you actually understand? And that's what I just want to make sure that the recommendations are understood. And I think that's a great idea. We can have us go out and give out our recommendations and give our recommendations.
So the one that's up now closes Friday.
And you can check right now who you represent, venues, musicians, like all of those
Right.
things. I think it's important that we have a good showing from all of those groups so that your recommendations are informed by all of it. Because it's going to end up that not just musicians, different people can apply to be eligible.
Do we know how many people have taken the survey already?
I think it was over 100 from what I thought I saw.
Gotcha.
42, I don't know. That could be a
Okay.
errant number traveling in my head.
Sure.
I just want to be clear on how those are or tally though, because to be fair, there are more musicians than venues and more venues than music businesses.
Right.
So if you have more of one sector, I just want to make sure that they're weighted.
Right. That's the way we did it with amplified sound, because the same thing. We had a small group of developers, a huge group of this. So what we did is that we pulled per question of like, how did you feel about this question? Rather than, averaging it all out. So that we really could see, venues felt this way, people felt this, that we could really see based on, it didn't matter if 4 people responded, that's how developers felt.
Briefly, just as a time check, it's 3:30. Should be about 30 more minutes of conversation today. I feel that this is a good starting point. The nuances of data analytics aside, is important. Otherwise, the only metric that will be judged on is heads and beds. So we need to figure out what other variables we find are valuable. Is there any other input on information that would make this process good?
I'd like to hear from the equity consultant that worked on the cultural arts.
Okay, that's Margie Price. We will see when she's coming in town again, so we'll find out.
Do you have a connection with her personally? Staff. Okay.
We also can have the equity office make a presentation if you'd like, so just let us know.
Yeah, I think that could be helpful as we get further down the line for sure. I think the only other, we've covered pretty much everything for this session that I think is important. I would just like to make sure that that we are taking the time to make sure that if there is a public component along the end, so that we are already on that.
Well, we don't want to work, we want to be working in tandem with you guys.
Right.
So I think, we want something to present. So
Right.
this could be a great way for like, okay, this is the last 2 months of work. This is where we're thinking. We want to start polling you on this. What are we missing? What's good? What's bad?
Yeah. And I would just say to my fellow working group members that, now that we know that the one survey is closing on Friday, maybe if you have networks of musicians, music business people, venues, etc., let's, share that information with them, that if you haven't filled this out yet, please fill it out so that we can kind of get a better idea, because even if it's just 100, we know that's not enough. We need more, and we might not get more.
A lot of fatigue.
There's a lot of fatigue, yeah, if there is. So let's all push it out one more time and get the word out, share the Speak Up Austin page. And then as soon as we decide what we want to ask next, let's make a concerted effort to do that, but also to lean on city, because what I'm hearing you say is that your office can then share this to social media and make announcements that we're looking for survey.
Yeah, as soon as we get to our next survey,
Right.
and maybe it's around like the prep for your next big community meeting, like what we did with the forum.
Gotcha. Perfect.
It's just all part of how you guys want the schedule to fall layout.
So to circle back to my first question about this, though, if we decide as a working group that we would like for you to put just a kind of a catch-all something or other on the Speak Up Austin page, we can do that.
Oh yeah, just send me whatever you guys want, and as long as I'll just have to be sure that it's appropriate to post, just your regular stuff, and
Right.
we should be fine.
I just, without a public component, I feel like having something on the Speak Up Austin page that just says, like a sound off, like send your thoughts here or whatever, just so we can at least have it coming in. If we know that 100 people have taken the survey, we're probably not going to get that many responses anyway, but I would at least like the option open that if musicians, music venue people that wanted to share something with us that they think we might need to know.
You can assist in providing support or anything like a public forum, like public information. If you guys are looking for seeking like
Yeah, we can assist with that.
Yeah, and I think, I would focus, since there is, like you said, everyone's filled it out, let's get the report ready and share that, and so people can go back and read it and see what people said, and then that'll help inform, the next agenda. And then also, real quick, if you guys, before you leave, have kind of an agenda getting ready for your next meeting, or, make that part of your agenda is agenda items besides like questions for staff, unless that is how you want agendas to be going forward, just to give us some, guidance of what your expectations are going forward.
I was actually just about to go there for the last 3 minutes. Yeah, I'd like to kind of jump in and talk about, well, one thing that I would ask of each of y'all, if you have models from other markets that you have seen for economic development in any kind of arts worlds, please share. Try to even share them, I guess, send to Stephanie to upload onto the portal, so that we can all kind of look at
consideration.
Yeah, models for consideration, whether, if you've seen something that works, it doesn't even have to be music specific. It could be, small business, heritage small business, or, anti-displacement practices, or whatever it might be, because these are all issues that affect the music industry here. And they might give us some ideas on how to build this thing. I would welcome any ideas that you might have, models that you've seen. Are there any other points of procedure or how we want to operate as a group that we want to discuss before we talk about the agenda for next time? Invitations, open and closed, communication, anything that anybody has concerns or wants to bring up?
Well, my only concern is that there are some folks that aren't here. And so I would just say, because we don't have a full working, this is not all of us. Are we? I we're missing 2. Are we also missing Charles?
No.
Yeah. And Stuart. Stuart
He
Sullivan.
wasn't on the fence about being on the group because
I
he
think
didn't
officially
consider it.
on this group, is he?
Oh, I thought he was listed on the
He
public
was,
page.
but he wasn't sure yet, so you guys just let me know.
So this is it.
Okay, then that was my only other thing. Then I just want let's make sure we get Charles looped in, and if Stuart's not going to be on it, then everybody else is here. Yeah, because that's. I just want everybody who is going to be here or is going to be on it to actually show.
Do we want to make a decision on whether we want to allow the public to attend? Or do we use?
Is that in your court?
No,
No, she said it's
all
up to
you guys.
us.
That's how you
Okay,
want it.
so let's repeat what that, because not everyone heard that earlier, but it was a discussion.
Right.
So what's the topic?
Well, the question is, do we want to have these be open meetings and allow the public to attend these meetings in the future?
And allow them to be filmed.
And well, let's start with attendance first, and
Yeah.
then jump to capture.
I would like to make a motion that meetings are open.
Okay. Second. We have a motion second. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, so moved. These will be open to the public. Do we want them to be captured for posterity and all times?
Well,
I would vote no.
I have to second that because we don't have any control, because in a public meeting at the city, it's just a steady stream, it's on a public website, there's no commentary, there's no splicing, there's no sharing, other than straight from a public website.
Right.
So unless we have that, unless we have those kind of controls, I'm really not in favor of something that can be edited, shared, commented on.
Yeah,
So we have to
need like the distraction of
Right.
like,
It's gonna be hard enough.
us or make memes out of us or
Right.
expression. I don't want anybody fucking.
Amen.
I'm sure none of you feel that way.
Context is important.
so then that was a motion to
Not
not allow, and you seconded that motion. So then we take a vote.
Anybody opposed?
I just want to clarify, I'm fine with it being captured, but it would need to be like.
In the-
with
by the
respect,
city and
yeah,
the way that it's
all of
set up,
us and
yeah.
the work that we're doing so that we don't
That's what
end
you're
up
saying.
being targeted in ways that are not necessary.
So you're saying you'd be fine with the city AV team
I agree that I would want it to be in a way that, I'm not
For that matter,
paranoid,
that we don't have to have a
but,
secretary, we can just go back and listen again.
sometimes, this is really sensitive.
Yeah.
This is a sensitive
I figure.
process, and we've all dedicated ourselves to do this, and I'm sure, I'm not really afraid of things, but I don't need any more stress in my life, so I just like this to be a safe place for us to do this.
Okay, could you repeat the motion we're voting on?
The motion is to not allow capture of these meetings.
Unless it's-
Whether audio or video. No, I'm just saying, none whatsoever.
Outside of the city.
Not city or public. If we're gonna allow the public here, but we ask that they do not record, film, or otherwise capture. I want us all to have the opportunity here to speak candidly and to be honest and straightforward and have an earnest discussion. And
Yeah,
to the point
clarify
of-
that the public is totally welcome, and also that the public shouldn't come in here and capture us and just, this needs to be a container that's open and transparent, but it's also safe so we can get where we want to go and have the
Cool.
results.
Frank?
Discussion. I think we need to double check that because the public space, public meeting is supposed to include the public. With the Channel 36 plus, we didn't want to film this. I don't know if we want to film. I mean, I think it's.
We have to reconsider.
I think if the gentleman back there wants to film, you can film. I mean, we don't necessarily.
If it's a public meeting.
Well, I think we're saying it's a public meeting, the public's allowed
Right.
to come.
So maybe we should take a pause then and consider our original motion about making them public if we don't want them filmed by outside members of the meeting.
Why don't we just vote?
Erica, do you have any perspective on the city's perspective?
Anyone can photograph and video as part of the law.
Yeah, you guys are on public property in Texas is a one-party consent state.
Yeah, so if you were to do it at a different location, I don't know if there are different things around that.
It would
It's not
have
a
to be
city
a private,
facility.
it would have to be a private facility, and we'd have to, even if it was a closed meeting, like the last one you were.
I believe so. I think if it's a public facility, that's the right, that's a one party, what is the term?
Texas is a one-party consent state in terms of recording, so
Yeah.
Chris and I are having a conversation, and I agree that it can be recorded, but you can't, needs to be recorded. For example.
So we may not have anything on the basis of being recorded.
Right, it sounds to me that we can't we can't restrict the public from attending, and we can't restrict the public from filming, if that's the case. Then there's nothing that we're actually debating.
Yeah. Yeah, because
So
what
why
you're
don't-
saying is up to us to decide if it's public or private.
It is up to you. And in terms of that, like, it's just a matter of who knows where the meetings are, just like with
So announce
any meeting.
Right.
Well, we all know where the meetings are.
Right.
You all are in a code of silence. Trust coming here. Okay, well, if we could get some more clarification from the clerk on
Yeah.
whether or not these meetings are could be restricted or if not, then great.
All right, we'll find out for you. We've got the questions in now.
All right, next meeting, February 24th, here. Hopefully we'll have Scott Jocelyn do the fireside, city attorney, cultural arts, some information from cultural arts, and we'll have some documents uploaded to the portal for us all to look at and to think about.
What about TML? Sort of a.
Oh yes, and I'll reach out to TML as
Tiebreaker.
well. Yes.
Texas Municipal League, so they're gonna have more of a middle road reading between our city legal and John Love, who represents the
Just a quick extra thing that Austin, Texas Musicians is hosting a Monday night thing at Beer Window. If you guys want to come and hang out, nothing but a commission meeting tonight. We're looking for people to jam. You know, we got the back line. Rebecca, I know you really want to come out and play some drums. So anybody that's interested in coming out, spend some vinyl. You know, jam starts late. If you want to talk politics, whatever, we'll be there.
Cool.
So procedurally, I was wondering how the group felt about looking at a roadmap going forward. This is something that chairs rather than saying anything now. Just generally speaking, this is what we're looking to accomplish. So that does give everybody a chance to be sure that they've done their homework. As we're speaking about the
Yeah.
Also, if they're presenters and questions for them.
Great. How about for next week's agenda, one topic for next meetings? We actually do kind of a work back schedule from where we want to go, and we talk more about what our end goal is and what our mission is for this working group and for this fund. Kind of do a deep dive on what the mission is, and then we can talk back on the schedule of how to get there. Is that a fair point? Fair use of our time? Okay, so we have some background, some data, mission, and discussion of timeline on how to get to mission for our next meeting. Anything else you'd like to add, or that sounds like a pretty full schedule to me for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Anything that you want to add? Thank you all for coming and donating your time for this. It's really important. I hope that I have a lot of smart people at the table here. I'm sure we're going to come with some great recommendations on this.
Motion to close the meeting.
So be it. Second. Anybody opposed? Go for it. Do good things.
Thanks again, all of you for coming.